Hey, what's up guys? It's Cliff from Trail Grid Pro. Pumped to be with you here tonight. It's 10:20 on a Tuesday, and I was about to sit down to put together a wiring harness tonight for a Toyota 4Runner install that we have tomorrow. And I said, you know what, let's go ahead and record this, show you guys exactly how we put these plug and play bundles together. And that way you can see exactly how it's done and know exactly what you get in the mail when you order one of our Sony plug and play bundles. We've partnered with great companies in order to make this bundle possible. Of course, I've already listed Sony. We've also partnered with Metra and PAC in order to bring all of this together to give you one of our fantastic plug and play bundles, which you can drop right into your 2010 and up Toyota 4Runner. We're gonna take all the hard work off of your hands. We're gonna do all the wiring, soldering, shrink wrapping, and tessa taping, giving you a professional harness so that you can drop it right in your 4Runner plug and play, which is fantastic. Those of you with a 2003 to 2009 Toyota 4Runner, don't worry, you guys are next. We're gonna have plug and play Sony bundles coming very soon that we can deliver straight to your door, so be on the lookout. All right guys, when you were watching that intro, you may have been saying to yourself, what is all that stuff behind him on the table? So I'm gonna walk you through that real quick, so let's give that a look. All right, so over here on the table, we have the Sony 7000 already loaded into the dash kit, looking super slick. The Sony 7000 main features, our bundle is completely plug and play, ready to drop into your 4Runner. As you can see here, already put together. And the Sony 7000 has an onboard 100 watt by 4 max power internal amplifier. It also has an anti-glare screen, so got some nice anti-glare there. And then we can move over here to the Sony 5500. This one has 50 watt by 4 max power. It does not have an anti-glare screen, so it's going to be a little bit crisper of a picture. As you can see here, you can see my reflection in there. The bezel on this 5500 is really a dark black, which is nice. Very lean bezel, almost nothing there. The screen takes up most of it, as you can see. Super slick. The 7000 is more of like a graphite charcoal, which is really slick as well. But you know, if I pan back here, they're basically super similar. And okay, of course, over here we have the boxes of the 7000 and the 5000, and then we have the PAC interface, which is really the magic box right here, which makes it all possible. And that makes the connection between the Sony radio and your Toyota 4Runner. That makes everything work. So what I'm gonna do tonight is I'm gonna take these jungle of wiring harnesses and put them all together for you so that you can see exactly what you're gonna get delivered to your door and just sort of the process that's done in order to make that happen. So again, all of our connections are soldered, then they're shrink wrapped, and then we put a professional tessa tape around it, giving you that professional harness which secures those connections. I didn't mention, but it's worth mentioning, these Sony radios have a 3-year warranty. For 3 years, you're covered no matter what. Sony's an excellent company to partner with, and we're grateful to have them in our corner. All right guys, so we're all set here to get started, and we've got several components here, 3 wiring harnesses. This is one component of the PAC RP4.2-TY11. And then we've got, this is the Sony harness. This came out of the Sony AX5500. And it's also the same wiring harness for a Sony AX7000. And then this also comes in the PAC RP4.2-TY11. And this is just the part of it that maintains steering wheel controls, but also all of these wires right here get married with the Sony harness, which I'm going to show you today. And then there are 3 additional wires in the Sony harness which get married to this part of the PAC harness, obviously for power, ground, etc. So let's get started on that. So what we're gonna do first is we're gonna start clipping some wires here in the Sony harness to get them all matching to the other wires. So now we've got, you know, kind of a nice, everything is about the same length as you can see there. So we're going to get started now cutting these ends off. It's a tedious process, but totally necessary. And that's why we like to do all this for you before it comes out to you. That way you don't have to do this. And by bundling up, you save some money along the way. Of course, on the install as well, because you can do the install yourself. All right, so that's done. We can pull all of our ends off. All right, so now we've got all of our ends off, as you can see, and I like to leave them frayed here because when I join the Sony harness to the pack harness, for me it's easier to leave them a little frayed to make the connection. That way you can get it nice and in deep with each other to promote a better connection. So now I'm going to take the ends, which have already been prepared for me, off of the pack harness, which makes it easy. And then at this point, you know, all we're going to be doing is putting colors together out of the, let's see, the Sony harness here. So we've got the white and black wires, which are of course for front speaker. And then let's see, where are the gray and black for front speakers as well. And then of course we've got the green and purple wires, which are for rear speakers. And we've got the black wire, which is ground, yellow for battery, and we've got the green wire, the light green, which is parking brake. We got the reverse in, and of course we've got the blue amp turn on. We've got the orange illumination wire. So everything appears to be here. So at this point, all we're going to be doing is marrying these two wires together. So let's get started on that. I'm going to put the pack main harness aside. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to take the shrink tubing, which I've pre-cut, and I'm going to put it on each wire so that once I've made the connection, I can just slide the shrink tubing over the connection once it's been soldered, and then heat it up and get it nice and secure. So let's put these on. All right, so I've got the shrink tubing done, all done on one side, ready to be slid over as soon as the connection is made. So now we're just going to start matching colors, and let's get started on that. All right, so I've got everything connected here, and my recommendation before you go to the solder stage is just double check each of your connections, make sure they're going to the right wire before you solder them together. So I'm just going through that check real quick, and then, you know, tightening any connections. It's just always a good idea to double check. And then we're gonna move on to the soldering phase. All right, so that looks pretty good. I think everything is correct. All right, so let's move on. So soldering iron is hot. My solder is right here, and let's get started. All right, we've got all those connections done. So now we're gonna just slide up the shrink tubing from these connections, and I'm actually gonna put those in place before I handle the power wires into the other section of the pack harness. All right. I've got those in place. We'll hook up the heat gun here, get that nice and hot, and just go over some of our connections. Get them nice and tight and in place. That shrink tubing just melts down, giving a secure barrier over the solder. It doesn't take much. All right, there we go. All right, now we're gonna handle these power wires. Bring this bad boy over here. And let's get started on those. All right, so we've got our connections made there. So let's go ahead and put our shrink tubing over these connections. Again, this is the ground, basically the power. All right, let's get the shrink wrap in place. All right, perfect. We are good there. All right, so you'll notice that there are a few wires that are extra, which we're not going to be using in the Sony head unit. This 3.5 millimeter plug makes the steering wheel control connection, so these wires will not be used in the application. And there's also a few analog navigation outputs over here that we're not going to be using as well. That's just for other applications. So at this point, the harness is ready to be taped up. So to just give you guys kind of a visual, if this is going to be able to even be seen from here, just to give you an idea of what's going on and how this is going to be taped up. All the connections over here are the Toyota connections. So that's what these are going to be plugged into. There's 5 connections here, and depending on the year of your 4Runner determines which connectors are going to be plugged in. Obviously the ones that fit are what's going to go in. And in the plug and play bundles that we send, we're going to be able to show you and tell you exactly which connectors that you're going to need to plug in based on the year and type of 4Runner that you have, the year and model. So then as we come down here, these connections here are going to go into the pack device, as well as this one. And then everything back here is what's plugged into the Sony device. So just to give you kind of a visual representation of how this harness is going to be taped together. So I'm going to do that. What I like to do is actually plug everything in place so that I know it'll all fit correctly. All right, so I've got that in place. So something to be aware of when using the pack interface here, there are 2 outputs here. The inside output is for non-amplified Toyota 4Runners, and the outside output is for amplified Toyota 4Runners. So kind of simple. All you do is you'll take the connection, and I know the one tomorrow is non-amplified. So I'm going to plug in my connection there. And then the last connection is just plugged right in here. So just walk you through the connections here on the back of the pack interface here. We've got, this is what's called interface connector 1, and this is an expansion port. And then this is the second interface connection. And then here, like I just explained, this is the audio output for non-amplified Toyota 4Runners. And this is the output for amplified Toyota 4Runners. And then on the flip side, we've got the 4th interface connection. This is what's going to the Sony, well, coming in from the Sony. And then right here, we have the dip switches. And this tells the interface what kind of radio we're going to have hooked up to it. And for Sony, only 4 is on. So I will send this with only Sony, only hooked up for Sony. If you ever need to change it for any reason, it's easily changed. And I'm going to include the information with the bundle so that you'll know exactly what needs to be on for what radio. But for Sony, we're at 4. All right, so let's go ahead and get this taped up using Tessa tape. For any of you hockey fans out there, this Tessa tape is basically like hockey tape. But I'd say a little nicer, less rough. It's just super soft and makes a great finish. All right, so we've got everything done here. Just a few things to walk through. I've left the camera wires out because the customer, he thinks he has a rear camera, but he wasn't 100% sure. He thinks maybe it stopped working at some point. He bought the vehicle used. So anyway, I've left those exposed just in case I need to wire in a rear camera adapter tomorrow. But I leave these connectors, I don't tape these up here because I need some flexibility, you know, out of this harness. So I don't tape it all up together so that they can reach the connector that they need to reach on the factory side. And everything going from the Toyota side all the way back to the Sony side is all done. 3.5mm jack. This is going into the Sony, of course, the audio, and here's the pack interface. So that's everything done. You know, just to recap, we took that. So here's a picture here of kind of the beginning, you know, to this, which makes it super clean and ready to hook up to the back of the head unit. All right, guys, well, it is late. It is about midnight, and of course, everything takes a little longer on camera, but we've got everything done, ready for tomorrow's install. Hopefully this was beneficial to you, but just to recap, this is the way that we're gonna, by hand, wire up all the wiring harnesses for your 2010 to 2019 plug and play Sony bundles from us. And then if you have a 2003 to 2009, that is coming very soon. So look out for that. So I really appreciate you watching. Hopefully you found this beneficial. If you do, please subscribe and go ahead and hit that like button below. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask below. I'll get back to you quickly. So thanks a lot for watching and have a blast out there.